Hey, what's going on, traders? I want to make a video on an exciting investment opportunity and potentially a short-term trade because I think you can kind of play it both ways on a stock that has seemingly lost steam over the last couple of months and couple of weeks and is not being priced at the levels that I personally believe it should be priced at. Before we get into this, I just want to touch on Carvana stock because the stock that I'm going to talk about relates to Carvana stock. They're actually competitors in the same industry. So Jim Cramer actually just recently called on traders and investors to start taking some profits on Carvana, mainly because Carvana has seemingly hit these overvalued levels, and we're getting up to actually all-time highs 323, and right now we're trading at 306. And I believe Carvana right now is like up 140% for the last year, which is, I mean, it's just crazy. But Jim Cramer and a JP Morgan analyst, Rajat Gupta, actually recommended potentially, taking some profits and selling some of your shares because we are reaching these levels, these overvalued levels, and we are kind of due for a pullback. Now, the reason that Carvana has been doing so well is that used car prices have seemingly skyrocketed due to supply chain issues. We aren't able to produce as many new cars as we want right now, so used cars values are going up. And even though Carvana hasn't reported their quarterly earnings yet, and they haven't shown their revenues for this past quarter, that is being priced in right now in Carvana. And the stock that I'm going to be talking about, it doesn't seem like it's being treated in the same way. And it's actually red for the day, which is even more of a buying opportunity in my opinion, because I think it's undervalued and it's a good long-term play. It's a good growth play. It is a small company, and so it still has a long way to go before it hits Carvana price levels. But I think jumping into this certain stock is a good opportunity, especially for an investment. Okay, so the stock that I'm referring to as a potential good investment is called Shift Technologies. It's an e-commerce platform very similar to Carvana that sells used cars, buys used cars, anything like that. And the best way to go about deciding on your investments is to value it in comparison to its competitors. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull up the financials for Shift, Carvana, and Vroom, and we're going to compare across the board to see which one could provide better value in terms of an investment. Now, the best way, in my opinion, to value these companies would be to use the enterprise value to revenue, mainly because we can't use a PE ratio here because all three of these companies don't have any earnings. They actually are money-losing companies, which I'm not too worried about, mainly because the overall market for e-commerce used car sales is still relatively small. So I still think that the overall market has room to grow, and I do believe that each of these companies will succeed in their own ways. So let's do some comparison. So we're going to be using the enterprise value to revenue, and what we're looking for here is the lower number out of all these companies. The lowest number can signal two things. One, it can signal that investors are they don't believe that sales will increase and that the company's growth will increase going forward. And two, it can mean that they are undervalued. My personal opinion on each of these companies, will primarily Shift, is that it is undervalued. I don't think it's a representation of their overall growth as a company because they're a very new company. They SPAC'd in 2020 last year, so they've only been on the market for less than a year. So they are a very new company. They're doing their best to grow, and I do believe that the enterprise value to revenue showcases that it's an undervalued company in comparison to its competitors. So what we're going to be looking at is their most recent enterprise value to revenue statistic. And for Vroom, as of March 31st, it had a 7.74. Carvana had a 20.84, and Shift had a 4.53. So what this means in my perspective is that the best value, the best bang for your buck would come from Shift Technologies, mainly because it's the undervalued company out of these three major competitors. Now, I just want to reiterate that Shift Technologies is a relatively new company. They're still very, very young, very small, and it is a growth play. It is a very risky play since they are new. They could potentially, go under and not make it. But I'm going to be optimistic for this company because it is very young, and I've been seeing the efforts they've been making to grow their market share. And I do think that it has a promising outcome. I'm not saying to go all in Shift Technologies, but it wouldn't be a bad idea to add a little bit to your portfolio so that you could potentially, be along for the ride as it continues to grow. Now, what we want to see for a newer company and a growth play is increasing revenue. And let's go over to Shift Technologies and let's look at their revenue. So as you can see, from 2019 to 2020, their revenue did increase. And as of the last trailing 12 months, they're at 271,769. So their revenues are increasing, which is exactly what we want to see in a growing company. But going back to what I said about Carvana. Carvana right now is running because used car prices for this quarter have been going up. And that's being priced into the stock right now. That doesn't seem to be the case for Shift Technologies. I believe that when Shift reports their quarterly earnings, they're going to smash all expectations. Now, this is all speculation, and this is like where the trading comes into play. What I think might happen is that this call to sell Carvana because it's overvalued will potentially shift some eyes for investors that are looking for another e-commerce used car sales play. And that'll probably bring more attention to Shift. Now, what we're mainly looking for here for Shift is institutional investment. Right now, I think Shift is being held up by retail traders or retail investors, but we haven't had that inflow of institutional investors yet. And when that happens, I believe Shift will take off. Now, there's two main reasons why I think revenues will increase. And the first one, and I briefly mentioned it, is that the overall market right now is very, very small. And I want to reference this article by Michael Waters. Online used car sales are booming, but the road remains bumpy. And what they say here is that used car marketplaces have grown rapidly. While only 3% of shoppers visited online car retail sites like Vroom in 2017, 17% did in 2020. So over the course of 3 years, this percentage 5 times in value. And I believe that this is just getting started and that this market has a lot more room to grow. And as this market grows, that saying of a rising tide raises all ships comes into play, because if the market grows, then the market share for each of these competitors should grow as well if they are doing their job to gain that market share, which I believe Shift is doing. And the reason I say that is because if we come over to their operating expenses and we look at their selling, general, and administrative, we see that their selling and marketing expense has increased dramatically from $6,957 in 2019 to $36,878. That's an increase of 6 times. So Shift is doing their best to get as much market share and market their company as much as possible because they want to call this market share away from their competitors. So I think they are doing their job in terms of getting market share. And as this overall market increases, they're going to do just fine. Now, there's 2 other things that I would like to note for Shift Technologies, and the first one is the insider transactions that occur within the company. We go over to holders and we go over to their insider transactions. We can see that purchases for the last 6 months total 7,227,173 shares. 15 transactions worth that many shares, and only 1 sale occurred for 8 shares. I'm not sure what happened there. Probably some executive wanted coffee or something, I'm not sure. But this showcases that the insider executives have faith in the company. They're buying back their shares. They want more ownership in the company, which is a good solid sign, and it's something to point out. Another thing I want to call out is just the analyst price ratings, and we can take this with a grain of salt, mainly because I'm not sure who these analysts are, but we're just gonna look. We're just gonna take it into consideration. The Shift consensus price target on average is about $15, and from this price point right now, that's almost a 100% gain. That's almost a double as of right now. It's a little bit less than a double, but I just wanted to call this out that the consensus price target was around $15, and it's something to take note of. That is going to conclude this video. I hope you all enjoyed it. Head over to my Twitch. I'll be live streaming here in August every single day at market open. I'll be day trading live, talking through my trades and my mindset, and I'm really excited for it. So if you're interested in seeing that, go check out my Twitch. Also, if you want up-to-date statuses on current trades that I'm in that I'm not putting on YouTube, head over to my social medias. They'll be in the description down below. Follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram, and ask to be on my close friends list on Instagram, so you get to have more insights on trades that I'm currently in that I'm not putting on YouTube. As always, if the video was helpful, please make sure to leave a like. It helps out a whole bunch. Subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.